Welcome back to this Crossroads course. The topic for this lesson is the sanctity of truth. Lesson outline: explanation of lying, exceptions to lying, and expressions of lying. Exodus 20 verse 16. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. The ninth commandment, you shall not give false testimony, commends truth and condemns falsehood. As with the other commandments, the black sheep of the family is chosen to represent the whole family. Giving false testimony in a court of law is the worst kind of lying because it is a deliberate, malicious attempt to destroy another person's life. Although not to the same extent, other forms of lying also destroy lives and relationships. The way the Bible develops this command shows that the core value is the truth and the main vice is lying. In this lesson, we shall explore some of the Bible's teachings about honesty and integrity, using Proverbs 12 verse 22 as our theme verse. The Lord detests lying lips, but delights in men who are truthful. Explanation of lying. Defining lying as speaking untrue words is not good enough because it is possible to lie without speaking any words at all. It is also possible to tell the truth by speaking untrue words. A woman's warm smile, intended to convince her friend that they are on good terms, is a lie if she is inwardly angry and bitter towards her friend. She has lied without saying a word. On the other hand, a pastor might say we have 100 members in our church, when in fact he has 112 members. Strictly speaking, his words are untrue, but we would hardly say that he lied. The idea of deliberate deception lies as the root of the biblical definition of lying. Any time we set out to lead others astray so that they will believe something to be true which we know to be false, we have lied, and are guilty of sinning against the truth. Therefore, we shall define a lie as any act of deliberate deception. To lie, you must be guilty of three things. You must communicate an untruth. You must know it to be untrue, and you must intend to deceive. Exceptions to lying. Is there ever a time when it is right to deceive another person? Are there any exceptions to the biblical commands against lying, or are they absolute? Rushdoony rightly protests against the widespread tendency to interpret the ninth commandment to mean you shall at all times, under all circumstances, tell the truth to all men who may ask anything of you. There are situations in which God does not require us to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. There are some situations in which God allows and even requires us to tell lies. In these situations, a lie or a deception may be the only righteous action. However, these exceptions are not man-made loopholes. They are exceptions that are permitted by God in the Bible. We cannot add to them as we see fit. What exceptions does the Bible make? We believe there are 4 biblical exceptions. Incomplete truth. When a witness testifies in a court case, he vows to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. He promises to disclose fully all relevant information. This oath is necessary because it is possible to deceive by silence. You can deceive someone by telling him the truth, but leaving out crucial information that would change the way he interpreted the situation. The command to tell the truth does not mean that a person must tell all he knows in every situation. We are entitled to withhold information from anyone who does not have a need or a right to know it. Not everyone has a right to know everything about our private lives. If a work colleague asks about your financial status, you do not have to give him a full disclosure because he does not have a right to know such details as your salary and savings. The Lord himself does not tell us everything. He tells us what we need to know. God told Samuel to tell only part of the reason for his visit to Jesse's house when he went to anoint David as king. On one occasion, God told the Israelites to go into battle, but omitted to tell them that they would lose the battle. When must we tell the whole truth? In 2 situations. Firstly, when the person to whom you are speaking has a legal right to know the whole truth, such as in a court of law or a judicial inquiry. Second, whenever leaving out a crucial piece of information would completely mislead the other person, thus being equivalent to a total lie. If a mother searching for a lost child stops a passerby and asks him which way the child went, and he replies, "She went west," but leaves out until the next street and then turned north, his omission of crucial information makes the first statement a lie. In summary, we may leave out any non-essential information without being guilty of lying. Whether something is essential depends on whether the other person needs to know it, and whether or not its omission completely changes the meaning of the information provided. Social conventions. In many trivial social situations, strict and literal adherence to the truth is not necessary. When playing games such as chess or tennis, we try to outwit our opponent. We are playing, not lying. When telling jokes, we try to lead people astray as to set them up for the punchline. Again, we are joking, not lying. When exchanging casual greetings, we do not expect a full and complete disclosure of the truth when we ask, "How are you?" In a casual greeting, we are not requesting a medical report. Requiring strict and complete truth-telling in every casual context would put an unbearable burden on everyday relationships. The purpose of God's command against lying is to protect our fellow man and our relationships from the damaging effects of dishonesty. To impose on humor, games, or casual social greetings the requirements of the ninth commandment is not to serve the cause of truth. Actually, it trivializes the weighty demands of biblical integrity. Strategic warfare. War is waged by all available means. Deception is one of the weapons of war. The use of decoys and distractions, spies and lies, ambushes and covers up are familiar and acceptable war tactics. In a state of war, there is no obligation to tell an enemy the truth. He has no right or exception to it. The Bible even approves of deception in war. The supreme example is the way the prostitute Rahab concealed the Israelite spies and lied to her own king and soldiers about their whereabouts. The New Testament praises her as a hero of faith for her actions in helping the people of God. God himself rewarded her for her actions. She was not condemned for lying because her lies were an act of war. Ehud used a lie to kill the king of Moab, who was oppressing Israel. God himself sometimes commanded or personally engaged in deception as an act of war. He told the Israelites to send spies to spy out the promised land. He commanded Joshua to set an ambush, and he himself set an ambush. He caused the Assyrian army to flee by causing them to hear the sound of an approaching army, even though there was no army. Opposing crime. The final situation in which lying is justified is in opposing criminals. If a woman is abducted by a would-be rapist or murderer, she is free to use any form of deception to escape. She is opposing evil, not committing it. If a would-be rapist, thief, or murderer asks for information with the apparent intent of using it to commit a crime, you are morally obliged to withhold the truth. An outstanding biblical example of this kind of deception is recorded in Exodus 1. The king of Egypt commanded the Hebrew midwives to kill every boy they delivered, but they did not obey him because they feared God. In anger, the king summoned them to meet with him and asked why they had allowed the Hebrew boys to live. In response, they lied to Pharaoh, saying, "Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women. They are vigorous and give birth before the midwives arrive." God's approval of their actions is clearly stated. So God was kind to the midwives, and the people increased and became even more numerous. And it was because the midwives fear God that he gave them families of their own. The Bible does not condemn them for lying. It commends them for doing the right thing because they feared God. He rewarded them for their faith and obedience. The crucial thing to understand about all these examples is that they are not an invitation to lie for any good cause. They do not teach that we may lie so that good may result. These are specific biblical exceptions to the command to tell the whole truth in all circumstances. What is more, they are the only biblical exception to that command. Expressions of lying. We have examined situations to which the ninth commandment does not apply. Now let us examine the most important situations in which it does apply. Perjury. The ninth commandment, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor, applies most directly to giving true testimony in a court of law. Perjury is the most serious form of lying. The entire system of law and order in a nation depends on honest witnesses. Perjury thwarts justice and promotes lawlessness. In America, before the 20th century, an unbeliever, a man who did not fear God, was not allowed to testify in court because there was no reason to believe that he would tell the truth. Proverbs 17 verse 15. Acquitting the guilty and condemning the innocent. The Lord detests them both. Although perjury is taken quite lightly today, seldom being severely punished, in biblical law and in most past societies, a perjurer received the same punishment he tried to have inflicted on the defendant by his lies. In many cases, the punishment for perjury was death because perjury was considered as attempted murder, trying to have another man executed for a crime he did not commit. Prediction. Bearing false witness to God violates the ninth commandment. When a false prophet makes untrue predictions in God's name, he tells a lie and makes God a liar. No one should presume to speak for God unless God has clearly spoken to him. God treats prophets and their words sternly. Deuteronomy 18:20. But a prophet who presumes to speak in my name anything I have not commanded him to say, or a prophet who speaks in the name of other gods, must be put to death. The test that is used to distinguish a true prophet from a false prophet is the truth of the prophecy. This has two prongs. First, if he makes a predictive prophecy, the prediction must come to pass. Second, even if his prediction comes true, his life and teaching must be true to God and the Bible. Promises. To make a promise, however well-intentioned, and not to keep it, is to lie. We should be slow to speak. In particular, we should be cautious in making promises. Promises are voluntary. We are under no obligation to promise anyone anything. However, if we freely choose to make a promise, we are bound to obey it. Psalms 15 verse 1 and 4. Lord, who may dwell in your sanctuary? Who may live on your holy hill? He who keeps his oath even when it hurts. Pretense. There is nothing worse than telling a lie, living a lie. If you pretend to be something that you are not, you are deliberately deceptive. Jesus calls such people hypocrites. Hypocrites pretend to be more sanctified, more spiritual, or more skillful than they actually are. They talk the talk but do not walk the walk. Jesus found them the most offensive of all people. The word hypocrite occurs 21 times in the New Testament. 20 of these are from Jesus' own lips. Poetic license. What is commonly referred to as poetic license, the Bible would call lying. Poetic license is the freedom given and taken to embellish and even to distort the fact for the sake of dramatic effect. Whether a preacher who exaggerates a story to enhance its effects, a businessman who presents statistics creatively to secure a contract, or a journalist who edits an interview to make it say what he wanted to say, deception is lying. A friend of mine who has a doctorate in physics once attended an evangelistic sermon in which the preacher used an illustration from the world of science. The way he told the illustration was both humorous and effective, but his facts were inaccurate. After the service, my friend approached him and very diplomatically cleared up the preacher's confusion. A few weeks later, he happened to hear the same man preaching in another service. To his surprise, the preacher again used the same illustration. To the preacher, impact was more important than truth. To God, the order is opposite.